The facelifted Tata Harrier is impossible to ignore and hard to resist. It's hot, it's well equipped, it's practical and readily available. So, what's the catch? The only reason I wouldn't buy the Harrier is because I don't gamble. I'm no longer worried about the reliability and dependability of the machine underneath. But this Harrier is packing in a lot more electronics and electricals. And on the basis of our experience, there is cause for concern. However, there's the temptation. The Harrier is now better to drive, better to be driven around in, better equipped, and more premium. So those of you with fewer grey hair and more time on your hands might just be willing to say, "Dekh lenge." Harrier में देखने वाली बात तो हमेशा से रही है. The Harrier always looked impressive, and after the facelift, it's even more impressive. The size is the same, but the face is different. It looks more glamorous and more proud. I do like some of the details there, but I don't care for this redesign because it misses the point. The Harrier still looks too much like the Safari. People invariably walk around to the rear and then say, "Oh, Harrier." And at the rear, there are design changes like the tail lamps, which look more sculpted and honestly fussy. The entire idea of this redesign should have been to make the Harrier look young and sporty, which is why I love this color. It just gets the point across. Those blacked out alloy wheels completely miss the point. They don't look cool. They look better on the lower variants of the Harrier where they're used not blacked out. And the lower variants of the Harrier do look good. What's not so epic are some of the patchy LEDs. I stopped in my tracks looking at the connected LEDs up front because of the difference in color temperature. There's also a gap between the LED elements and the housing. There are some panel gaps as well. It's safe to say that this Tata is better built than before. That's a bit like getting a toast that's burnt on one side. You'll manage, but it does leave a bitter taste. Any bitter aftertaste will vanish when you step inside the cabin. It's the reason most people will fall for the Harrier. The combination of luxury and technology is wow. The entire control panel on the dashboard is blacked out until it turns on. It's the same for the steering wheel and the off-road mode drive selector. Every variant of the Harrier gets some kind of digital instrument cluster. This top spec variant has a fully digital instrument cluster, and its touchscreen for the infotainment system is XL. This techiness contrasts sweetly with the traditional sense of luxury. There are soft touch materials everywhere. The leather-wrapped steering wheel and seats look great. The new design for the dashboard is cool. And the yellow highlight on the crash pad is used only on this signature variant. So if you don't like it, don't worry about it. But it still has misses. You have newer things to deal with, like the touch controls for the air conditioning system. Not only are they unpredictable in the way they respond, they are harder to use on the go. The driver's fully digital instrument cluster has wow features, but its functionality is poor. Basic readability is an issue. It's hard to see the revs, and its menus jump around on the basis of the notifications. This is glitchy and terrible. Those are facts. Just like the Harrier's big SUV feel inside the cabin that wows you. It's the height you sit at. It's the width of the cabin. Now the front seats have been moved back a little bit to make more space for taller occupants. The seats are as comfy as before. If you want to treat yourself, get in the back. You have sunshades there, solid charging and storage options. The aircraft-style headrests and the sense of space pampers you. You'd love to catch a nap here. It feels like the best in the segment. If the seat base had a bit more support, and if the seat back recline angle was adjustable, it would have been ace. The Harrier has also improved the boot space by lowering the floor. Packing in 3 large suitcases here is easy. The only problem is the spare wheel. It sits underneath. The Harrier is ridiculous. It's a beautiful contradiction. This big and tough SUV is great for the city now. Its new electric steering is light, and it feels light on its feet. Its diesel engine is quieter than before. More importantly, it's much smoother than before. The diesel engine combined with the 6-speed automatic, the Harrier will chill in or zip through traffic happily. The engine is torquey and the gearbox is smooth. It's a good combination. This combination delivers a fuel efficiency of 9 to 12 kilometers per liter in the city. If you were thinking about the manual, which will be cheaper and more efficient, keep in mind the clutch is light. The gear shifts aren't so smooth, but with that responsive diesel engine, you won't have to work the gearbox all that much. So, as long as you aren't going to be spending time in bumper-to-bumper traffic all the time, that combination will work. The Harrier suspension also works beautifully. It has this softness going over speed breakers and potholes without bounciness. There is a trade-off because you will feel some firmness going over rumble strips, but that's acceptable. The Harrier feels at home on the highway. I enjoyed traveling in it. Not only is the cabin quiet, the engine also feels calm. It's relaxed and ready for overtakes or just a quicker pace. It doesn't feel like a diesel because there isn't turbo lag and suddenness of power delivery, which makes it more enjoyable to drive. Inside the calm cabin, you'll hear that slight whistle from the turbo, which is good company. The diesel automatic combination on the highway returned about 17 to 20 kmpl, which is better than what I expected. In the sport mode, the Harrier is more fun and energetic. But if you want to drive enthusiastically, the manual will be of interest. Not because of the additional control that it offers you, but because it feels lighter and a bit firmer. The Harrier, though, isn't sporty. You do feel its size and weight. Its brakes feel a little slow to respond when you press down at first, and the steering isn't all that sharp. But the Harrier Dark, with its 19-inch rims and wider tires, should be better on these fronts. Keep in mind the 18-inch wheels strike a good balance. They won't be as noisy as the 19s, and they will be better for rough roads. Big bumps don't rattle you or the Harrier. Over lightly broken roads, you do feel some bumpiness in the front seats, but the back seat remains plush. The lower variants of the Harrier with the 17-inch wheels will be even comfier than this. The Harrier will put many people at ease with its safety quotient. It gets 6 airbags as standard. There's a 7th airbag on its top spec variants, and there's a whole lot of electronic stability aids as standard as well. Its updated chassis has helped it score 5 stars in crash tests as well. There's no two ways about it. I enjoyed driving the Harrier. The automatic and the manual, slightly different flavors. And I would enjoy spending time in its backseat and traveling with it. In our time with the Harrier, we had no mechanical issues. But this Harrier packs in a lot more electricals and electronics, and that is a cause for concern. We have had issues with the battery, and I will warn you, do not leave the lights on your Harrier on with the engine off for anything longer than necessary. There are other longevity issues, like with the LED elements. On the dashboard, we saw some bits fading. There are usability issues with that touch control panel. It's hard to get used to, inconsistent in the way it responds, and needs to be improved. The driver's digital instrument cluster is cool, but useless. It needs a rethink. The menu system and the alerts are bothersome. The most worrying bit is Tata's reputation for after-sales service, which is a reason to not buy one. However, this Harrier is now very tempting. It's cooler, it's more enjoyable, and very welcoming for the family. So if you're thinking of getting one, I get it. But just ask yourself, are you the kinds who'll gamble and say, dekh lenge? As for me, I would love to see one in my garage. But 30 lakh rupees is a big gamble.